We're going to go ahead and get started. We're on a clock here. We got to be off by 5. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. You'll have to unmute yourself when it's your time to ask the question. We'll go ahead and get started with Barry Trammell, and then Jason Kersey will be on deck.
Yeah, Lincoln, how crazy is this? The uncertain, you guys preparing for a season, and there's so much uncertainty, even down to the schedule, even where there's any fans in the stands. How can you prepare for something you really don't know what it's going to look like?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's challenging. In some ways it's challenging. In some ways it's kind of fun, in that it's different, and some new rules, new ways of going about things. I think we've kind of embraced that part of it and enjoyed some of the challenge. As far as the season and schedules and all that, I think you got to be careful. I think in a sense maybe over preparing as far as worrying about if it's this day or that day, and it's more having, I think, your priorities in order, having an idea on some of these potential timelines of what that could look like. But it's so unpredictable now. It's difficult to sit down and put it down on a calendar, and that's probably one of the hardest things. We're all used to having it very regulated and very structured, and knowing exactly when things are going to happen and building it around that. But we don't have that right now, and we could sit there and guess and throw darts blindfolded at the board and hope one of them lands, but that's not been our stance. It's been more about being creative and focusing in on what we can do and what we can do right now, and then starting to get our priorities in order as this thing starts to clarify, so that when we do get certain dates of one, getting players back on campus, what we can do, when we're going to play, then we already have kind of our philosophies and ideas in order, and we put it down on a calendar, and then we go play.
Okay, we'll go to Jason Kersey, and he'll be followed by Eric Bailey.
Hey, Lincoln. Thanks for your time. So I was wondering, do you have any update on Trajan Ronnie and Ramondre, and has everything being shut down slowed that process down at all that you guys have been going through?
Yeah, no update. I think that's fair to say, that all of this has probably slowed that process down. It's still being discussed. I don't think it's going to get left unattended to, but I do believe it's fair to say that has slowed it down. There's just other priorities that are obviously a lot higher right now for the people that make those decisions.
Thanks, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Eric Bailey is next, and will be followed by John Hoover.
Lincoln, like everyone said, thanks for doing this. There were reports that Jaden Hazelwood suffered an injury in the past few weeks. Can you speak about that? And also, are you concerned that any players who may need treatment right now are getting it from home? Is that comparable to what they get when they were on campus?
Yeah. Jaden had a lower leg injury that we're dealing with right now. He'll miss some of the early part of the season, and we'll have to see how the rest of it, how he responds and how he comes back from that before we know anything further. It was non-football related, non-workout related, just kind of a freak accident at home, basically. And then, as far as the rehab and training, I mean, we've got kind of two groups of guys. We've got a number of our players that are either in Norman or in this general area that still come into our facility and do their rehab, do their treatment. It's pretty limited on how they do it, and our group's done a good job keeping it very regulated. A lot of our guys have been able to continue any rehab or therapy at home, so they're in regular contact with our medical staff. We're able to provide the things that they need to do for that, and then we've got some of our guys that still need that physical therapy there still need that medical personnel right there next to them. So if they're at their homes, and we've set them up to do that at various facilities across the country where we have contacts or where we've been able to visit with their people and get on the same page. So that's honestly been pretty smooth. That's honestly been, not that I would have known before, but it's probably been one of the smoothest, easiest parts of this deal.
Okay, we've got John Hoover next and Dean Blevins on deck.
Hey, Lincoln, in regards to quarterback specifically, without a real definitive timeline for when to come back, whether it's school or workouts or whatever, I'm sure you just tell guys to, hey, just stay ready. But how do they do that? How do you stay ready? And what specifically kind of things do you want them to do to stay ready?
Well, it's helpful because it's, we're able, like right now, to have 8 hours a week of meetings with these guys. So, you're constantly in their ear. There's not very much mentally that you can't do with them. And honestly, even like this is a time where typically we've had no hours with them during the month of May. And so this has actually been this part's kind of been kind of cool, that you're able to continue the learning from the spring, even though it wasn't on the field and it was different and all that. You're able to continue that here into May, and I would anticipate we're going to be able to continue into June as well, depending on when we get these guys back on campus. So from a mental standpoint, I think they're in a great place and have progressed a ton, and, able to, they've all done a good job of finding places to throw the ball and places to continue to work on and people to work with during this time, and been able to keep me updated on it. And so now I think we've had a good game plan, and I think they've done well. Obviously, I can't wait to see them with my own eyes, but I'm excited about where they are, and I'm confident about where they will be.
Thanks.
Okay, Dean, you're up, and Garen, you'll be next.
Hey, Lincoln, the $64,000 question hasn't changed from week to week. I've got to ask it again. Our viewers and readers and listeners, their first question is, what are the chances we're going to have football? I know it changes day to day. Where are you now? What's the latest in your gut, and what are you thinking?
I definitely think we'll play. When we play, I just think everybody, whether it's our decision makers, our coaches, our players, fans, I think everybody's got to have a very open mind about this. We're not the NFL. There are some huge differences in us being able to put on a successful season versus a professional league. We're not the NBA. We don't just have, our 15 players. This is a totally different deal. So I do believe if we do it right, and if we're patient enough on some key areas, like when we bring our players back on campus. All this talk of these schools wanting to bring players back on June 1st is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. And so we got to be patient. We'll get one good shot at it to bring them back at the right time when we're as prepared and know as much about this as we possibly can. And but I do believe if we do it right and we don't get ahead of ourselves, that we will be able to play a season, whether that's this fall, whether that's in the spring, whether it's a combination, whether it's just a full schedule, shortened schedule. I don't know. I know all those options are on the table, and we're going to have an open mind, and we're probably going to have to make some adjustments along the way. But I have a high confidence that we are going to play football this year.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Garen Emig. Will be followed by Nathan Thompson.
Okay, Lincoln, following up on something I guess you just said about bringing your kids back. When you recruit these guys, you are in living rooms of families and parents promising to take care of them. That goes for you and anyone else who's ever recruited a football player. Does that promise and that an agreement you enter into, not just with the kid but their families, does that come into play particularly at a time like this? Do you think about that in those terms?
Without a doubt. I think it's our job as football coaches that we got to look at this way, way beyond what's competitively the best thing for our own team. And for a lot of coaches, that's hard. You know, we're wired, you know, trying to do everything we can to help our teams win. And this is different, though. I mean, this is just this is totally different. And we as coaches and our university administrators, our ADs, all the people, you know, the NCAA, the people at the conference level, I mean, people making decisions have got to keep that the number one priority. And so, yeah, I just think I think it would be completely irresponsible of us to bring these guys in. You know, in my opinion, we need to bring them in as late as we possibly can before we play a season. Every day early that we bring them in is a day we could have gotten better. It's a day we could have learned more about the virus. It's a day PPE maybe gets better. It's a day closer to a vaccine. It's a day that our testing equipment and testing capabilities get better, and it's just not worth it. And so we gotta be patient. We get one shot at this, and we've got to do it right. You know, there's differing accounts right now on, you know, do you need 4 weeks? Do you need 6 weeks? Do you need 8 weeks? You know, whatever that is, I think, you know, a lot of those are very feasible. I think 6 weeks is very doable. But I think if we bring our players in even one day before we have to try to start a season, I think it's the wrong thing. And we're pushing hard for that right now.
Okay, Nathan Thompson to be followed by Bob Prisbillo.
Obviously, Coach, different parts of the country have been hit by this harder than other parts. Can you play a season if most teams, most colleges can play, but not all of them can? Can you crown a champion if most can play, but not all of them can?
Well, sure you can. We certainly don't want to. But if it comes down to, you know, if it comes down to either that or no season, would you play? My opinion would be yes, because to me, any kind of college football is better than none. But certainly, I think you've got to exhaust every possible scenario, again, including potentially playing not in a traditional season, even potentially playing a split season or playing in a spring or whatever it is. I think you have to exhaust everything possibly before you get to that scenario.
Okay.
Yeah, Lincoln, we saw the in-person recruiting delayed through at least June 30th, but you guys have made a big splash with the virtual visit that you guys have been putting on the last couple of weeks. Just wondering who sort of has led the charge there, and why do you think those have been so successful?
No, it's our whole staff's been involved in it. You know, we've worked hard on it, and no, it's gone good. So, you know, there's a lot competitively within that right now that, you know, I don't want to get too in depth for those reasons. But it's been fun to connect that way, and we've got a really good creative staff that, kind of like I mentioned earlier, I think the first question, you know, we've tried not to look at what can we not do. We've tried to embrace what we can do. And so I would put that under that category. And that's what the rules are right now. And I know they extended it through June the 30th. I think we all believe that there's a, you know, virtual certainty it's going to be extended beyond that. And so this is what we have to get used to right now.
Okay, we're going to go to Tyler Palmatier, who will be followed by James Hale.
Lincoln, given the changes that everybody's making when they're reopening right now, you know, with sanitation and social distancing, what do you anticipate is going to be the biggest change in your facility in that regard day to day? And are you appointing somebody that's going to oversee aspects of your program just for the foreseeable future to just, I guess, sort of like a czar, if you will, to make sure that you guys are staying, I guess, in lockstep with each other and doing the right things?
Yeah, definitely. Biggest change in the facility, I think will be the amount of testing equipment that's both in your facility and required for anybody to come in. And that's, we're not ready to go into details about what that's going to be, but we've had, we've made some good progress there. And then I think the biggest, probably one of the biggest differences we're all going to have to deal with at some point when these guys come back is, we're not going to be able to have them all together at once. And, your facilities, even you think like your team meeting room, a team meeting room is built to hold however many people, and you're not going to be having a team meeting in your team meeting room. It's not going to happen. I mean, you may be something as crazy as you may have to have like a team meeting in the stands, where you've got everybody 6 feet apart. I mean, you're going to we'll figure it out, and we'll make it work, but it'll definitely be different. Greg Tipton, is in charge of our facilities from an administrative standpoint. He'll run point on that and communicate a lot with Scott Anderson and the medical team, and then all of our different kind of department heads, and, to make sure that we're on the up and up. But those are active conversations that that we've made a lot of progress on already.
Okay, James Hale, and then Caleb McCory.
Hey, Lincoln, thanks for doing this. Hey,
Thanks, Lincoln.
Joey and I were wondering, because it's a totally different, aspect for recruiting. You guys have been so good, with the spring game. Nobody touches you. And, you usually had so many guys coming in, and you don't get that now. So how unique, how creative have you had to get, what has this been like for you through the recruiting process up to this point?
It's been fun. It has. It's, like I said, I enjoy the new challenges of it, and I think our staff does, and we've embraced the positives in it, and there definitely has been some positives. I mean, there's every college coach in the country has had more time to recruit, in the last couple of months than they probably have ever had in their lives, and so you've been able to connect with a lot of players, even though it hasn't been in person. I could argue you've been able to maybe connect with players more than ever before, just because of the amount of time, not only for you, but it's just so rare that these guys aren't in school from, 7:30 to 3:30, and then they're at their practices. I mean, everybody's home virtually all the time. So there's really not a time that you can't connect. And so, no, it's been good. It's been fun to get to know them on that level. You certainly hate to not have some of the in-person things, but it's there's been some advantages too. So I'm proud of the way our staff's handled it, and I'm excited about the direction it's going.
Okay, we've got Caleb McCory, followed by Keegan Renault.
Hello, Lincoln. I don't know if you saw this earlier today, but on Twitter, Starlin Baldwin, former wide receiver, he said that he was very critical of the rehab process that he went through at OU. Did you happen to see that?
I did not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he was very, very harsh about it, saying it wasn't very good. I was wondering, do you happen to have a response to that at all?
Not anything more than I have extreme confidence in our medical team, and I think 99.9% of the OU players that have been here in the past would echo that. And anytime you have tough injuries, and like Starlin did, had one coming in, and then had some injury troubles when he was here. That can be a very frustrating thing. So I understand his competitiveness and frustration, and hate it that he couldn't get on the right side of it, but he had great care here at Oklahoma, and that's I think all I would say.
Okay, Keegan, you're up. Cliff Brunt on deck.
Yeah, Lincoln, thanks again for doing this. I haven't had a chance, I don't think, since he transferred to Oklahoma, to ask you about UCLA transfer Chris Murray. Just what do you think you're getting in him, and what kind of impact can he have for you guys?
Mike, I'm not 1,000% sure that I can comment on him yet. So
Yeah, I don't think we can yet. Keegan, do you have another question?
Yeah. You guys obviously have had a national recruiting approach as of late, but it seems like in that 2017 class, you guys, the Oklahoma talent has picked up each and every year. You've had 2 to 3 elite guys. Just how important when you have that homegrown talent, you see what Clemson and Georgia, and they really don't have to leave that Atlanta area too often. How important is it for the homegrown kids or kind of that uppick in talent, especially defensively, is happening?
Yeah, no, it's extremely important. It's having a home state where we don't have just a ton of people compared to a lot of our competitors. It's important one that our players here get developed, which I think the high school coaching in Oklahoma is at an all-time great level, and it's just getting better and better. The facilities are getting better and better. The players are getting better, and it's important for us to keep them home. I mean, it without a doubt is. And, we've been pretty successful in that regard. But it's always a extremely high priority for us, and we're excited about where that's headed for sure.
Thanks, Lincoln. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, Cliff Brunt and then Ryan Aber.
Yeah, hey, Coach. Again, appreciate you doing this. There's going to be some obvious changes in terms of expenses. You're going to have tests. There's going to be some money involved with some of the changes that are going on, but there's probably going to be less money in the pot. With that being said, do you see how you guys do certain things changing? Maybe travel to games, what's available at the training table, things like that as you go forward?
Yeah, no, Cliff, it's an interesting question, and it's a little hard to say right now. I mean, I think we're all, preparing for, potentially some changes there. But it's probably a little bit too early to say, just because we don't know exactly what all that looks like and what this season will look like and the financial impact of that. But it looks obviously likely that there's going to be some type of impact, and anytime there is, we've all got to be ready to adjust. So I think like anything, you try to be efficient with your money, which we are. I know there's a perception out there that, and I got to be honest, I was one of those before I got to a place like OU. There's a perception that, well, these schools like OU and their athletic departments, they get whatever they want, and they spend money recklessly, and it's money's not an issue, and that's not the case. The dollars that we have available to us, we're thankful for. Every dollar that we spend in our football department is accounted for, and we try to spend it really thinking it through and making sure it's something that's going to make a difference in our program. We respect where it came from, and if we've got to make it work with a smaller chunk, then we'll find a way.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Mike, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
All right. Either you got a shadow in your room, or you have a quarantine mustache going on.
No, that's no shadow. Yeah.
And I just needed some confirmation on that.
Yeah. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
You know what? I like it.
Well, talk to my wife.
Yeah, as long as your wife likes it, all good.
Yes, sir. I've only got 2 other questions, or people who let me know they have questions. If someone who hasn't asked one wants to text me or send me a note in the chat, we might be able to get in another 1 or 2. Okay, Ryan Aber, followed by Kerry Murdoch.
Hey, Lincoln, early on in this thing, you talked about the need for sort of a level playing field across college football. As the discussion starts moving into getting back into things, there's been a report today that Texas's football coaches are going to be back in their office, I think, next week. Have you talked about a timeline for that? And also, is that any kind of advantage to be in your office versus what you've been able to do virtually over the last couple of months?
Yeah, so we're we definitely won't be in until June the 1st at the earliest. I think for 2 reasons. One, again, the safety and health of our staff is critically important, and we're not going to jeopardize that in any way. And then, yeah, we're able to get a lot done. I mean, I don't know that there's honestly, if you go back in the office right now with all the social distancing, all the regulations, all that's going on, you almost, for us, you almost feel like even if we felt like it was safe, I think, I don't know that we can get as much done as we can get done right now with all the hoops that you honestly have to jump through to be able to do it. So now we're gonna be on the slower end of that, without a doubt. We're gonna, similar to what I said about the players. To me, why would you bring your staff in right now when you could wait 2, 3, 4 weeks and then hopefully learn more advancements, more tests, this or that, and just, I just don't think we can be in a rush, and I get that's my opinion. I'm not at these different schools, and I'm not, I'm not saying what they're doing is wrong, but I just know for us, talking to Joe Castiglione and our group, our mentality is let's give it as much time and a chance for us all to progress as much as we possibly can, just because this thing changes. I mean, you guys read the news, you see what's going on. I mean, one day it's this, and 3 or 4 days later it's that, and 2 days later it's this, and we're constantly learning and evolving. And I want to give us a chance to be as prepared as we possibly can be before we open our doors to players or staff.
Appreciate it, Lincoln.
Okay, Kerry.
I'm supposed to be the cleanup guy and ask you anything that hadn't been answered, but everybody just wants to know who Barry Trammell's talking to on the phone. He's going at it. I think he's probably he's doing his radio show right now. Okay. Lincoln, we've asked you a lot of football stuff. I'm just curious, like for you being at home as much as you have, being around the family as much as you have, obviously you don't get time like that if, you're not in the situation. Has there been a good part of it for you just family-wise that, you wouldn't normally get to have this much time with them, or have you learned things that, had to relearn things like washing clothes or, ordering stuff online or anything?
No, there's without a doubt, I'm very thankful for this time. I mean, I think both me, my daughters, my family will be for a long time, because that part of it's been great. I mean, just being able to, see my girls every morning, being able when I'm take a quick lunch break to walk down there and eat lunch with them and see them every night, tuck them in bed every night, not the 30 minutes back and forth from the office, even just that time a day that you're normally driving. And it takes me 30 seconds to walk downstairs and I'm here. So that part's been great. You honestly did kind of have to reacclimate yourself into like being in the house that much. And it was different. It was hard at first. It's become more the normal now, but no, the time with them, time with my wife, the downtime, the time to actually work out, a little bit more, somewhat regularly has been good. So all that I've enjoyed every single part of it.
All right, thanks for doing this today as well, Lincoln.
Of course.
Okay, Jenny Carlson has asked to ask one. Jenny.
Hey, Coach. Sorry I don't have the good Ryan Aber, Tyler Palmatier lighting here. But, hey, I know this is obviously a ways down the road as it relates to what a season might look like. But there's been some talk about maybe conference-only games. And obviously that would mean different things in different conferences, different number of games potentially being played. Have you thought any about that? Have you and Joe talked any about that? Big 12. Has there been any conversation sort of what that challenge might look like?
Oh, without a doubt, endless, daily. Life is kind of right now one endless Zoom call, at least when I'm upstairs. And so, there's been a ton of discussion of it, and I think there's a number of ways you get there. It's, if you have to start late, I think it's a very real option. I think if you if you potentially decide, and I think one of the leagues, maybe the Pac-12 came out, if you potentially decide to leave some weeks on the back end of this in case people aren't able to play, leave yourself a little bit of a buffer, then I think it's a realistic option. If you play in the spring, I think it's a realistic option. And so I think there's several ways that we could get to that. And then you'd have to decide, you require everybody to play a certain number of games, or, you just have the conferences do it like they did and we end up playing one more, there'd be some decisions to be made. But there's some interesting points, because inevitably, you hope it doesn't, but at some point in the season, if all of a sudden the team has a big breakout and can't play one week, is it a loss? Is it a forfeit? Do you have time to push it back? I mean, there's just a lot of questions right now. And so, but I think everything's on the table, but could you see it being a conference only season? Without a doubt.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Okay, unfortunately, that's going to do it for our time. Coach has other obligations. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Coach Riley. Everybody be well, and we'll talk to you soon.